Hello, everyone. Welcome to That Projector Life. I am sitting here with Sashya Clark, who is a mental projector, and we are going to talk about tons of things, mostly parenting and parenting as a projector, both projector kids and non-projector kids. But first of all, welcome, Sashya. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. I'm just so excited. I'm one of your biggest fans also, just in case anyone was wondering.
Oh, that's awesome. So I want to start by asking you the question I ask pretty much everyone, which is, how did you find human design? How long have you been working with it? And how did you feel about first finding out you were a projector?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I actually wonder if human design found me, maybe. So about 10 years ago, I'm friends with a manifesting generator who had a coaching practice, and she was like, "Can I just try this human design thing on you?" And I happened to be at the time having some teenage angst. My daughter was a teenager at the time, and we were just not really seeing eye to eye, and I had a whole lot of fear wrapped around that whole stage anyway. And so I probably a year worth of coaching, and she used our charts to help us just learn things about each other and the dynamics. So what I remember, like my biggest takeaway from that first session was like how angry I felt that I wasn't allowed to help people without being invited. I was not used to that at all. And then I also remember being so surprised that I had so many open centers. And she was telling us how my daughter who has a defined solar plexus, how I would amplify her emotions, and that a lot of our arguments and our disharmony was actually probably me amplifying a lot of her emotions. And so that was actually the most useful thing I learned from about a year's worth of coaching about that, was just how to separate myself. I always thought I was a pretty emotional person until I started practicing distancing myself from the solar plexus energy around me. And now I'm like, I'm kind of an even keel, actually. So it was very eye-opening, to say the least. But then I kind of let it go for a while. And then I was in a online business group. I guess it was about 2 years ago. And someone asked who's your favorite do you like Myers-Briggs, or do you like colors, or what's your favorite personality system? And somebody's like, hands down, human design's way more practical and way more accurate. And I'm like, oh yeah, human design. I forgot all about it. And so then I just started studying, and I was like, oh wow. And I feel like I was able to integrate a lot more this time around than I was the first time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have met a lot of projectors who it took them two or three times to really get into human design. Like the first time they were like, okay, I kind of get it. And then the second time again, it was like, but then it's like either the second time or the third time, they're like, oh, and
Yeah.
it just integrates. And I wonder if that's fairly normal for projectors, just in general. That's so interesting.
Well, you can't really tell projectors much, so we have to be pretty open to it too. I don't know. It just seems so, yeah, like I said, I remember feeling really hung up on what do you mean I can't? I have to wait to be invited. So, but I was able to like look back and go, wow, a lot of the bitterness in my life I can think of has come through situations where I didn't have a proper invitation, or I had one and it had ended and I still was sticking around anyway, trying to help. So it totally makes sense. And I remember even like in junior high and high school, like I don't know how to live my life yet, but my friends would always come to me for advice. So it was weird. And I always wondered what was like wrong with me, that like, do I just, I don't know, come talk to me. I felt like Sally from the Peanuts, like the doctor's in. What do you need to know,
Yeah. And, as a mental projector, so you've just got your head and your ashna defined, right?
Right.
And as a mental projector, people always say mental projectors are here for the other. You're just here to kind of be that bounce ideas off of person, um, and help other people figure stuff out. And so I have a question because I get asked this a lot.
Okay.
Well, actually, first of all, tell us what kind of like, because we're going to be talking about parenting. So how many kiddos do you have and what like age ranges and types are we looking at?
Oh my gosh, all of the like traditional human design people are going to freak out when I tell them I have 4 kids. I have 4 kids. I'm a non-sacral being with 4 children in my life. And well, now we have also a daughter-in-law and a grandpup, if you will. And I also help out with our religious school. So I'm around kids a lot. Um, and yeah, according to Ra, like projectors aren't even supposed to be parents. So, which I don't know if what he exactly meant when he said that. I wish I could ask him, but it was, I remember hearing that on an audio when I like started digging into it again. And I'm like, I'm actually a really good mom. I don't know what that's all about for him. So, but yeah, 4 kids. And yeah, it's being I don't, I think that projector moms do have to parent slightly differently than generator moms would, but I don't think it's wrong or bad. So,
Yes, I love that. And I know I've heard that as well. Projectors aren't supposed to have kids. It's that idea of something like you're not supposed to leave genetic material behind or something like that. And it's like,
mm,
well, I know personally for me, my parenting and the challenges and the joy and the personal growth that my children have brought along with them has really changed me as a person. And
mhm.
I am a better person today because I have kids. And I completely understand and agree with that idea of like, you need to like improve yourself just for you. And it's like, yeah, okay, great. But I'm not
Mm.
really the kind of person who's like going to be gung ho improving myself for myself. Um,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's that drive. Like, I have kids. I want to be a better mom for them. I want to be a better person for them.
Yeah, we have a lot in common that way too, because I think if I had been left to my own devices, I would probably still have become a relatively selfless person. But oh boy, just like those seasons where you're tired all the time, you really don't learn a lot of self-control and patience until you're too exhausted to fight. You know what I mean? Like, and there are moments, all the moms, even the generator moms, get so tired when they're all under 5. And it's just day after day, it's like laundry and feeding and napping and more laundry and more feeding and more napping. You know what I'm saying? So like I know that can be an exhausting stage for any mom. And so yeah, I think I've been blessed too, and maybe you have too, with people like my husband's super supportive of I mean, we've never talked about that I need more naps, but by the third baby, I was just like, hey, the baby's napping, I'm napping too. And it just became kind of part of our thing. And I've been that also helped us. Our third son never really slept through the night. I found out why in his chart. We fixed it now, but he didn't really sleep through the night till he was like 6. And so, it was challenging, but like I said, from a maturity standpoint, if I hadn't had that challenge in my life, I don't know that I would have learned to be okay with being tired and not having to, be extra emotional. I used to get really like short and impatient with people, especially my kids, when I was too tired. And I've just found that if I'm starting to sound that way, I probably just need a 15-minute nap. And I just go, put a movie in and we take a little nap. I take a little nap. They watch the TV. So but they're really, so that's so cool too, because the more I'm okay with my design, the more my kids are too. So like they're like, oh, mom just needs a nap. They don't think anything of it. And it's not like I'm, some depressed mom that doesn't get out of bed till after noon every day or something crazy. And their needs are still getting met. And I think me being able to recognize their unique needs is helps them to be able to respect that about me back. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And with that, I realized, talking about like having little ones, because mine are 7 and 9 now. So they're pretty self-sufficient for the most part. They have
Hmm.
mastered the art of making a PB&J. We've only
Yep.
broken one jar of jelly, which is great. So we're doing really well. But
Yay.
yeah, yeah. It took me until my youngest was 4 or 5 to realize that I had been sleep deprived constantly for the
Hmm.
past, 4 or 5 years, basically. And I was like, holy cow, I've just been living in that place of constant sleep deprivation and exhaustion. And it was just so fascinating to kind of come out on the other side of that and be like, whoa,
Hmm.
we all have those periods where we are exhausted,
Hmm.
but it just, and then also, my thoughts are going so fast, I'm having trouble articulating them.
It's okay.
Um, I find that the way that I parent, the way my husband parent tends to be very different. But of course, I'm aware of human design and he doesn't care about it. So
Hmm.
I'm more like, I don't care, I'm just more hands off. So like last night, I told my youngest, I said, okay, it's an even number day. You're the number two child, go upstairs and
Hmm.
shower. And she said, okay. And she points to her sister, she goes, come on. And I was like, they're going to go shower together. I knew that's what they were going to do. I didn't care. I was like, that's fine. They just don't hurt yourselves, right? And so they went upstairs and they showered, and I peeked in on them just to make sure everything was okay. And they were also brushing their teeth in the shower, which their dad was like, don't do that. And I was like, I don't care. If they're getting it done, what does it matter? So it's
Yeah.
just more of that laid back parenting that I actually did not do when they were younger. And I think part of that
Hmm.
is just one, maturity. I am older now than I was back then. I have that perspective of it's not a big deal and I'm less tired. I know
Yeah.
because, when you are exhausted, it tends to be harder to just deal with things like that.
Yeah, and like I'm just thinking, like if there's any mom listening to us right now that is at that exhaustion point, like you can keep pushing and get that adrenaline rush and not feel exhausted anymore, but then everything starts to feel like a big deal when you're in that adrenaline thing where you're fight or flight. And I remember just like I can't parent like that either because oh my gosh, that is I'm like causing a conflict where there isn't one or a power struggle where there doesn't need to be, all just because I'm so tired that my adrenaline's kicked in to keep me going and I can't. It's really hard to regulate emotions. So yeah, if there's a mom out there that's at that stage, oh boy, just tap out, ask for some help and get a nap. That's all, or a bath. That's what often just even soaking in the bath, right? It's just enough to set me a little bit. So anyway, but yeah, I do. I remember just how tired I used to feel too. My kids are now 24. No, yeah, 24. I'm like, wait a minute, is she 25 yet? Not yet till July. She's 24, and then I have a 11-year-old, 9-year-old, and my youngest will be 5 in May. So, and they're all generators except my youngest is a projector. So, uh, yeah, it's been
That
fun.
Yeah, so what is it like parenting a projector child?
Um, well, at the risk of my children listening and thinking he's my favorite, which is not true, he is also very chill. And so, okay, so because he's super other oriented, now all of my kids are very kind and tenderhearted, but he's exceptionally other oriented. So it's like if I hardly ever have to raise my voice to him because he already knows, because he can feel my disappointment if he's doing something wrong before I say something. So I have learned with him to be a little more careful about anything that might sound like criticism. And again, not that he can't handle it, because when he's really out of line and he needs it, I mean, he trusts me and we have a relationship and I can tell him like that is not right. But a lot of times he picks up cues from my facial expression and recorrects his path from just other cues, and or like he can tell he's hurting his brother or something, so he will stop. And again, he's not a perfect child. He's very he's very hard to teach compared to my other ones. With generators, I could just be like, hey, are you hungry? And get their sacral to say something that's totally off topic of whatever they were trying to do. My middle boy, so he's the third child. He would like love to turn our furniture into a wrestling ring because he loved Nacho Libre when he was little. And so if he's like on the edge of the couch ready to launch, I'd say, "Hey, are you getting hungry?" And he'd go, "Yeah, I am." And down he'd come and he wouldn't jump. And so you can totally like use their sacral energy against them sometimes to redirect them, but you can't really do that with a projector. Uh, but I have been practicing a lot more of those open-ended questions with him because I'm like, what do you think's going to happen if you do that? And he'll think it through because he's very thoughtful. And anyway, I find like also just how do I say this? Because I talk with my hands a lot. So I'm like, how do I say this so that the listeners who aren't seeing my hands can see? But like with generators, I can kind of be more like a back and forth, like a volleyball type conversation with them. But with projectors, I find with my projector son, I find like guiding him from the side works better. So we put the problem in front of us and then we try to solve it together. And I kind of can tap into his natural need to guide things in the most efficient manner too, that we share, and we can kind of guide the problem into a solution that works for both of us. So that's a little different, but it's a lot of the same skills. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That is so awesome. So like with your generator kids, do any of your kids have a defined willpower?
I don't think so. Let me double check, but I don't think so.
Okay.
That
Because
would be
that,
challenging.
yeah, it is challenging. I can attest to that. Because
Now,
I,
because they typically need a lot of time to talk about themselves too when they're right. That's not just children, but adults with the defined. Sorry, my alarm on my phone's going off. How rude. I can't get it to stop either. It'll do it one more time and then I promise it'll stop. Oh goodness, sorry. Very human over here. Okay, so yeah, I wondered with kids that have the defined ego or the defined will center, as a parent, I would really probably, if I had a child like that, I would make a lot of space for them to just talk through their thoughts and feelings and what's going on. Maybe not even feelings, maybe just thoughts and whatever is interesting to them at the moment. But no, I don't think any of my kids have a defined ego. Oh, you know what? My daughter does. Wow. Never mind. Yeah, I'm a super expert at this too. But yeah, okay. So I do recall in high school her needing time to talk. And my middle boy was a baby, the not sleeping through the night baby at the same time. And I remember one time it was just one of those days where I was really tired. She came home at like midnight, she was driving at that point, and she was talking my ear off at the foot of my bed. And I was like, can we talk about this during nap time tomorrow? Because I am so tired. And I immediately saw the hurt on her face and totally regretted saying it, because I wasn't even being mean. I was just like, I'm so tired, I can hardly hear you, But she forgave me a couple weeks later and started talking at other times of the day. But if I could go back and do that season over, I definitely would have made sure I took naps in the late afternoon when on weekends when she was going to be out, so that I could be up for her, because I don't know. I remember needing to talk when I came in too sometimes about what happened. So anyway, we live and
yeah.
we learn. I'm a 6'2", so I have to learn by a lot of mistakes sometimes too. So
Yes. Yeah. And I think of it as their decompression
yeah,
period.
yeah.
Like, especially, my kids are out of the house all day and they're experiencing all these things at school. And, they're interacting with classmates and other kids. And um, then they come home and I notice we have this like adjustment period. So my kids are walkers.
Hmm.
Fortunately, we live close enough to the school where we can just walk. So
Oh,
on the
good.
way home from school, and then as we're getting snacks ready, they're talking to me about their day. And it's typically my manifestor is the one who has the most to say. Although she tends to find drama, bless her heart. So we've been dealing with that, and I'm trying to help her navigate relationships. It is hard though, especially for
Hmm.
her and her design specifically. But then my generator also, I try to make sure that she gets a word in edgewise as well, because she has a lot of things to say. But I have noticed, so they both have a defined willpower.
Hmm.
And the channels, so my manifestor has the 45-21, so she's got that channel of money. My generator has the 25-51, so that channel of initiation. So I'm dealing with tribal willpower and the voice of the tribe, and individual willpower, all about, love and all that good stuff. And so I see that dynamic play out between my kids, where my manifestor, that channel at 45-21 is a struggle for me and it's a struggle for her, because she has to have her way all the time. And if she
Hmm.
doesn't get it, she gets angry. She is so angry when she doesn't get her way. And I have my other child who also has a defined will and is like, look, these are my boundaries, right? And it's really interesting because with that 45-21, my manifestor doesn't want to share, because it's about resources and the allocation of tribal resources. And for
Hmm.
her, she's more in that shadow side just because she's 9. I think we're all kind of the shadow side, more egocentric when we're 9. And she doesn't want to
Yeah.
share. So she's really unwilling to share. Whereas my generator is just like, yeah, here you go. You can have this toy. Yeah, you can play with that toy. And
Hmm.
if my generator all of a sudden is like, well, no, I want to play with this toy, then my manifestor is just angry. So we've had to work with that because it's like, look, baby, I love you, but you need to respect what your sister is saying and those boundaries. And so we're working really hard on that. And I found that with her, so like for parenting manifestors and my manifestor in particular, what works really well is I address the situation, right? Because I can't have her being unkind to her sister or pushing those boundaries. So I address that incident in the moment, and she's going to be angry. And it's like, that's fine. You can be angry.
Right.
Sometimes, if I'm really good, I won't amplify that anger. Other times I do amplify that anger, and it's like, "Rah." But I've been working really hard to create that space for her to feel her anger instead of me feeling it and amplifying it. So giving her that space and being like, look, you can be angry, but you can't act in this way. How about we try acting in this way? Um,
Right.
and then after the fact, after she's calmed down, so maybe an hour later or 2 hours later, or maybe the next day, I'm going to revisit it with her and talk with her about it. But I do feel that manifestor aura that pushes away, I can tell when she's not listening. I can tell when she is really closed off. And when she's really mad, she'll yell at me, leave me alone. And I can feel that aura. And so for me, if I'm really angry and like amplifying her anger, because manifestor rage is so different from other people's anger. It is
Mhm.
like white hot. It is a whole other level. And if I'm amplifying that, then I get really caught up in it too. And I'm trying to like beat down her energetic walls basically and be like, you will
Right.
listen to me. It's like, well, that doesn't work. That
I
doesn't work.
am your mother. And she's like,
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah.
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 Yep,
So
I can feel that. I have a little brother who's a manifestor, and I mean, he's not little anymore. We're both in our late 40s, but yeah, I do remember. Well, luckily, because we were latchkey kids, he did have a lot of freedom of movement as long as we stayed in the neighborhood and as kids, you know. And I think a lot of kids of the 80s came home after school and were alone for an hour, hour and a half, or whatever. And the only time we really had trouble is when he wanted his way and it was different than the rules. And I was trying to be like, no, because if you're going to get in trouble, because you'll get caught and then we'll both be in trouble. And so I can't, you know, and you're not my mom. He'd always yell at me. I'm like, no, you're right. I'm not. I don't know why I'm in this position to have to answer this question right now. But anyway, but yeah, as adults too, like you said, he can be struggling with something and we're friends, you know, but he has to really be either energetically or really with his voice asking me, what do you think, before I mean, trying not to step over that line because um well, I feel like, and maybe this is your experience too, but like the communication of respect for that boundary, I think is really super important to manifestors. That I respect your process enough to stay out of it until you want me there. And he complimented, because again, as that all kind of came out of of me studying human design this last couple of years, where I started just listening and not offering anything to say at the end, and then sometimes asking, do you mind if I have something to say about that? Because I've parented longer than he has, and I'm the big sister, so I'm supposed to have good advice every now and then, right? Well, and he's like, I don't know who taught you to start asking me for permission, but I love it. Keep it up. That's what he said the first time I did it. So I like this thing. I don't know where you're learning this, but keep it up. So anyway, he doesn't dole out compliments to his big sister very often, so I'm going to take that one and ride it on home. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but anyway, so back to the manifestor thing. Yeah, I definitely understand. And he's very aware, and maybe your daughter is too. He's aware that he pushes people away a little bit and that it's his job to relationally step over the wall he naturally creates to invite people into his space. So just he's really good at just engaging his friendships and initiating, like game board night or whatever he wants to do with his buddies. And or like when he wants to come over, he's like, hey, are you free Saturday? I mean, he doesn't wait around for me to hint that I'd like company, he's just like, he knows it's been a while since we've talked, and he's articulated to me that I'm just aware I push people away for some reason, and I have to keep asking them back if I want them around. So I don't know. I didn't tell him that off of his chart. I wondered if I'd be curious to see if your daughter notices it too, that she can feel that repelling thing happen on accident when she doesn't mean it to or something.
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to ask her about that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to ask her about that.
I remember feeling like I could like see into people when I was pretty young. Do you remember the first time you were ever like really able to notice somebody was like trying to hide that they were upset, but they were actually upset? I think I was probably 5 or 6 the first time I remember remembering it, you know? What about you? Like,
I so I grew up in an so my dad was not a great person. I suspect he was a manifestor, and he was very much in that anger of not self. And
oh
my
yeah,
parents were divorced as long as I can remember. I don't remember them living together, but my mom said when I was like 3 and they were going through the separation, she's like, you would take off your diaper and go poop outside because you were just so upset and like you were not happy here. I was like, oh,
yeah.
that's great. And so I grew up in that house where like my survival strategy was, how angry is dad? What does dad want me to say
Yeah.
now so that he's not going to be angry? So I
Hmm.
I guess it's a good thing that I was a projector. Um, Although my brother being a manifestor,
Oh,
I
right.
feel like all that stuff kind of just like slid off of him. And they kind of like
Hmm.
Teflon. So for him, he had that kind of protective aura around him. And he was actually the one who was like, Ardelia, we need to stop seeing dad. He was the initiator in that one. And I just
Wow.
went along. Yeah. So we didn't even know human design back then. But my brother was like, this is not good. This is not healthy. We should not be here now. And so he was the one who called my mom and was like, we need you to come pick us up. We need to leave now. And
Yeah.
then she came and picked us up. And that was like the last time we talked to our dad. So I kind of grew up with
Interesting.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot in common there too. My parents have been divorced about as long as I can remember too. And I remember asking them, so I was probably 4-ish, 4.5. And I remember trying to figure out whose fault it was that they were getting divorced. Like, isn't that a total projector thing? Like, wait a minute, let's get to the bottom of this. Is there any way to solve this? Whose fault is it? And did I do something wrong? And and then also, yeah, same. I also same with my brother started breaking off our relationship as adults with our dad first, and then I was struggling with something that had to do with him. I don't know, but even just like a year ago, and my brother's like, "Well, you're the one that keeps, inviting him back into your life. Maybe, like he totally initiated this, like, hey." If it's not, good for the kids to be around, it's not good for the kids to be around. That's and so anyway, I'm a peacemaker at heart, I guess, but also, because your G center is defined and mine's not. I don't know. I'm curious, like if you don't mind comparing. I actually really internalized that manifestor anger, and I wondered if it was because my G center is open, but maybe people with a defined G center also, it is really powerful. Manifestor anger is very powerful. So I don't know if other people also really struggle to not internalize it, or if it's just that open G. I was curious about what your thoughts were about that. Because, we've worked with a lot of different people. I don't know. Yeah, I just remember the last time a manifestor yelled at me, and it wasn't my dad, it was somebody else. And just how like it almost felt like it cut my heart in half. It just hurt so bad. But they were just like venting, really. I don't even know that it was mostly about me. So what do you think?
Oh man, I don't know. That's a good question. When my manifestor gets angry, it it's hard to describe. It's that white hot rage. And then
Hmm.
I am frustrated with her. So it's my frustration. And then I'm like kind of amplifying that white hot
Sure.
rage. And it takes me a while to really like calm down. It's like almost like the logic side of my brain shuts off
Hmm.
and I'm dealing with all of these emotions. And so it's like there's kind of like a little red alert that flashes in my brain like, wait a second, this is not good for you. It's not good for the kids. You need to like claw back the
Yeah.
logic
Yeah.
and come back to your senses. And so that's what I do. I tend to I tell the girls, I'm like, look, I'm gonna go be alone by myself right now. I need to just like
Hmm.
process this. And there have
Hmm.
been times when I have been so just like upset with what is going on that I'm like, okay, I'm going to need you to go to your room and be in there and just be. And I'm going to go over here. And like, we just have to go to our separate corners to calm down.
Yeah, it is amazing how just even putting that 6 feet in between me and the person who's having the big feeling can make a huge difference. It could just enough to get my feet under me, because sometimes you get real swept up in it. I totally understand. Yeah. And all of my kids, except one of well, three of my four children have a defined solar plexus. So, like I told you when we were preparing for this interview, like sometimes I feel like I'm in this little, what are those little, like a little rowboat out in the middle of the ocean in my house sometimes. But I know I'm safe, if I don't take the big waves on as my own, I'm pretty safe. Actually, it'll all subside eventually. The tide goes out every day. I have my middle boy. He has the big like big waves of emotion when he's disappointed or upset, and he's just really passionate. And yeah, and I've learned to just like if I pull him into my aura and hug him, and then I kind of visualize myself as like the sand on the beach, because even though like I don't know if you've ever just really watched the waves before, but like it fills up the sand, but then just as fast as that wave goes back out, the water goes with it, and it doesn't stay. And I can be like that sand and just be a brace or a way to soften it and then not hold any of it for myself. And so I just kind of imagine myself as a shoreline and just kind of take him in for a little bit and help him just and he doesn't cry like in front of people. So if we were out in public or something, he wouldn't do that. But yeah, at home, he has no problem just coming over and grabbing onto me for a little bit until he's done, till his waves moved over. And I've started being able to, I've shown them all of my kids their chart. And he specifically is really curious about it. And I have talked to him about like talking to your parents when you're feeling that high emotion is probably not wise because because and I just make it really normal. Like a lot of people, when they're feeling that way, will say things they regret when they're feeling that way. So it's okay for you to go to your room or whatever and wait till you're a little calmer. And we'll be here for you when you come back out. Um, there was actually a debate on Instagram the other day on a parenting channel I was on where someone was saying it's not good to send your kids to their room when they're upset. And I don't send him there. I just let him know that that's his option, that he can go there if he is too emotional to talk right now. And then when the wave, and I've talked to him just like if it was a coaching client, and when your wave finally calms down, you'll have some clarity about what you're actually trying to say. And I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to talk it through with you, and I'm happy for you to come back when you're ready. So he's not being punished. And I always, not in the moment, but make sure that he knows like you're not in trouble for having a big feeling. I just am trying to help you be supported so that you don't do something you'll regret later. So
Yes. I
yeah.
totally understand. I try that. I try that. That's why one of the reasons why I try to send my manifester away because she snipes. She snipes at her sister. She's a verbal sniper. And I get it. I was
I
too.
love that word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what
She
you mean
is.
too. Like
Yep.
aims right for the jugular sometimes
Oh
too, I'm
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And she sits there, especially like when we're in the car. It's worst when we're in the car because they both have to sit in the back seat. And I can't ask my manifestor to step out at the stoplight. Be like, you need some time alone. We're gonna drop you off here. We'll circle back around and get you later, right? Like that's not gonna work. So
No, that's not
she
gonna work.
under her breath, she will say things. And of course, then I get, that is one of the things. It's like a trigger for me. And I'm like, okay, now you can share it with the car. You're going to say it under your breath. You say it out loud. We're not going to have any of that nonsense. So then I have her say it out loud so that we can all hear it because it's like, I'm that kind of person where it's like, if you're going to say something, you're going to say it out loud, say it loud with pride, right? And if it's
Yep,
ugly,
own it. Yep.
then we're going to have to deal with that. But she'll do that. So for me, and I try to explain this to her. Of course, she's been mad, so it hasn't been helpful. But it's like, look, listen, when you are this angry, you say things that are really unkind, and that's not
Hmm.
helpful for anyone. So if you could just take
Hmm.
yourself over here and like be away from your sister and not snipe at her, that would be great.
Yeah. And some of it just comes with maturity, right? I mean,
Yes.
they just sometimes have to grow into their aura. Karen Curry Parker teaches that they really that their part of the aura isn't completely developed until they're about 7 or 8 anyway, and that they do need sometimes a little more time inside your aura to help regulate. And my experience kind of bears that out. I think my kids had a like that. Maybe that's what changes at 9 is not so much that they start to get sassy, but just that they're starting to become more comfortable with who they are, and they feel a little independence because they used to need to be in your aura to regulate. Now they can regulate themselves a little bit. So, but yeah, my oldest boy when he turned 9, it was like all of a sudden he was completely he is a generator, but he has a very defined spleen and he's just acutely aware of when he's uncomfortable physically and just needs to go lay down or he needs to be alone for a minute or he's hungry or he's tired or his muscles hurt. He's just really in tune with his body. So, and he's been that way since he was a baby. I remember, I think he was barely 2 one time, and we had a friend over for dinner, and their kid, they like we had all kids of different ranges, so they were all kind of stair step together, and they were all in the car ready to leave, but the mom and I were still visiting at the door, which surprise, surprise. And he was really tired, and he kind of like pulled on my shirt and told me he needed to go to bed, and then I don't know, it might have been 10 minutes later. I finally said goodbye and I turned around and looked over my shoulder and he had decided to put himself to bed on the couch. So, and that was the first time he had ever like gone to bed by himself. And I'm like, this kid is so independent. Like he really knows he's tired. He just needs to go to bed. So, there was another instance when that boy he was, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months old and he was fussing. I could not figure out what was wrong. Like you take the socks off and you look at all their toes to make sure there's not like a string around his toes. And then I changed his diaper and I tried to nurse him and I tried to rock him and I tried to walk around with him. And finally, I got frustrated. So I just set him down on a blanket and decided to calm myself and come back at it with a fresh perspective. And that's all he needed. He just really wanted me to put him down and leave him alone. So I'm like, okay, so yeah, he's kind of been an independent kid, and like I said, when he knows he just needs something, he just needs it. There's like no apologetics. He's just like, I'm hungry right now, or I need you to leave me alone right now, you know. So, but maybe that's the generator in him too, because he's pretty responsive about things. We should talk about tips like how to help generators make decisions, right? Because this is like one of the beautiful things about being a projector mom and a generator children is that like those yes no questions are just amazing. Do you use those with your generator kid?
I do. I try. She's emotionally defined.
Sure.
So but for those little things like, do you
Yeah.
want to clean your room? Or do you have the energy to clean your room?
Yeah. Or do you want chicken or beef for dinner? Or are you, which my one boy is always like, how about ice cream? And I'm like, it's not on the
Eh,
list. But yeah, sure. Or like just if I'm interrupting what they're doing, it's very different. If they're like playing a video game or something, and I'll say, "Hey, could I have your attention for a second?" is also a yes/no question, and they're like, "Yeah, sure." Pause, right? And then I'm like, "Could you, do you want to do this right now, or do you want to do it in 5 minutes?" And that's not really yes or no; it's a either or, but it does help them decide which part of the question they want to say yes to. So that's a good trick. And then also redirection too. I tend to guide and because they're 9, the middle generators are 9 and 7 or 11 and 9 now. Sometimes their arguments are just need a couple of questions, like, well, whose turn was it last, and what rule applies here? And like, I mean, I feel like I can just ask a few questions to help them smooth their way through it. And I would say one of the strengths of being a projector parent is that you do learn to help make them independent as quickly as possible. Not in a bad way, like I don't want you to emotionally need me or ever talk to me. And no, my kids don't make 3 meals a day for themselves or anything like that. I'm not talking about that level of independence. I'm not neglecting them. But the whole idea of like, can you solve this problem yourself? Or do you actually need my guidance? And so I will sometimes ask them, like, here's a set of rules that probably will help with that situation. Remember when we talked about this the other day? Can you guys talk this through and figure it out? Knowing that that's kind of we just talked about this, or what's another situation? Oh, right. So some of your listeners may not know, but we're Jewish, and so there's certain things we do on Shabbat that we don't do on other days, and then there's other things we don't do on Shabbat that we do other days. And when they were younger, we had certain toys that were kind of noisy and obnoxious or messy. that I preferred to not play with that one day of the week because I don't want to feel like I have to clean up then on that day of the week. I'm supposed to be resting. And so anyway, one morning, my youngest boy was probably 2.5 at the time, and he was telling the older boy who was 4, like, no, we can't play with that. Mom said we can't play with that. And my older boy said, that's true, but it's not Shabbat today, so we can play with it. Like, so sometimes just I feel like I've empowered them by teaching them how to think about certain decisions so they can try to make as many decisions as they can on their own. And I also think generators need a lot of they need to trust that we feel that they are capable. And so I try my best to empower them with information so that they feel capable to handle things. And, again, I don't mean like, well, you should be parenting each other, but more like if you can, solve your dispute within the guidelines of the family, I'd rather celebrate that than try to get in the middle of it and encourage tattling. Oh my gosh, that's one of my pet peeves is tattling. So anyway, what do you think about that? I guess I don't want to do all the talking. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that was great. And that reminded me, like with generators and building that independence. So with my 7-year-old, she's my generator. And I I've instead of jumping in to help her when I see her, struggling with something, I just ask. Be like, "Hey baby, do you need help?"
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, the answer is always no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm here if you need help. Okay. Okay. And or like, for gymnastics, so she's in competitive gymnastics. I'm like, "Hey, do you want me to do your hair?" No. Okay, well, if you want me to, I'm here. But, like, asking her those kinds of questions,
Yep.
so, if she doesn't have the energy, if she wants me to, I'm there. And then my generator, bless her heart, she is the tattler. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
it's that sacral response. She has a really, like, clear sense of right and wrong. Both of my girls do. It's just they
Mm-hmm.
handle it differently.
Mm-hmm.
My manifestor is more the one to let it kind of slide and or take revenge, whereas my generator runs to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have had instances where I've been like, "Welcome to mom's school of conflict management." And I've
Right.
had the kids stand in front of me and like we walk through the
Yeah.
process of what we're doing. And it's like, "Okay, so like that's how we solve this problem. I would like you to do this next time." So basically, what you're doing with your kids, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
like laying out that framework. And that's so funny, like systematizing the conflict
Yes.
resolution process.
Right. Yeah. Like in our house, we basically have 2 categories of rules. Most of our rules either fall under safety rules or they fall under respect rules. And so I start out conflict management situations where yeah, that's a great way to put it. I'm going to put that on my resume, Ardelia. I have 25 years of conflict management experience. Anyway, have you ever sat back and wondered like what parenting life could look like on a resume? It's so funny. Once, when I was in the toddler stage, sorry, I'm going to get distracted for a second, but in the toddler stage, I was like, I should put waste management on my resume because that's what I feel like I'm doing all day long. But anyway, yeah. So like when we get to a conflict, I'll say, well, do you both feel respected right now? I mean, that's again a yes no question. And like one of them will say yes, and the other one will say no. And the one that's winning the argument's usually the one that feels fine about it. But yeah, like, is there a way that you can talk to your brother with respect and still solve this problem? Or is there a way that you can respect his boundary and still solve this problem? And then we also instituted a line leader system. I mean, I was running a daycare when we started it. And so I had between my 2 boys at the time, I didn't have the baby yet, and the other daycare kids, we had one person for each day of the week that could be the line leader. And that used to mean like they'd help line up at the back door if we were going to go for a walk or whatever. But then that person could also decide when we did have screen time, like what movie we were going to watch or things like that. So they got some freedom of choice too, or pick out the book that we got from the library right before nap time or whatever. And so, yeah, so we've kept it even after we closed the daycare. And each of my boys have a line leader day, which pretty much the perks of it is that if you're old enough, you can sit up front with me. But then they get to be in control of the television during their free time. And a lot of our arguments can be solved by, well, who's the line leader? who's my line leader today? And they're like, yeah, it's, this one. And then I'm like, well, can we let them decide what we're going to do then? Like, that's just the easy way to solve it, is I think it's important, to teach kids to, like, I don't know how else to teach kids to be a good leader except to put them in leadership positions sometimes, where, because being a leader, you have to learn to listen to the other people too. You can't just, it's not just about having my way for that one day, and like that's what happens. The line leader overuses their control sometimes, and they're like, yeah, you're the line leader, but are you listening to what your brothers are saying? They're complaining you've been watching the show all day. Can we try something else that everybody wants to do? So anyway, it's all a trial and error thing too. Like, I don't think, my third child, my middle boy, basically broke the mold on everything I knew how to do. So I don't, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It just really I had to step up my game. All the strategies that I used with the other kids really didn't, even though he's also a generator and they were too. He has the gate 28, the struggle. So we have just, he has the whole thing, the 2838. And so, yeah, if you'll indulge one more story, because I feel like I've been talking the whole time again. But he, is that okay with you? I was telling you this cute story about, we lived in a old farmhouse, so it had like a huge flight of stairs. And when my oldest boy, who has the defined spleen and has a really good sense of what his body can handle at any given moment, when he was learning to climb the stairs, he's also a 1-3, and so he watched the big people go up and down the stairs for like months before he ever tried it. So he just did a bunch of research, right? And watched and watched and watched. And I never actually thought in my mind that he was ever going to try it. So one day I left the door to the stairs open and went and used the bathroom. And when I came out, he was at the top of the stairs grinning at me like, I knew I could do it. Look what I just did. And I'm like, how did you get up there? I didn't even think, I never thought he'd try it, because he'd just sit at the bottom and watch people go up and down, And my middle boy, though, when he was the same age, actually quite a bit younger, he was probably 6.5 months when he first attempted the stairs. And oh boy, he'd get up 2 or 3 stairs and fall all the way down. And then he'd get up to 5 stairs and fall all the way down. And I bet he was 9 months. He went through like 2.5 months of struggling before he made it to the top of the stairs without falling. And you could not convince him to stop trying to do it either. Because he's like, no, 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 I can do it. Just give me one more chance. Just give me one more chance, And he's cute too. He had this really beautiful grin with drool coming out all the time when he was a baby, and these cute little dimples. And so you could hardly say, no, you can't try again, But I mean, it was so nerve-wracking because you knew he was going to fall. And yeah, and then when he was like 4, he tried ice skating for the first time, and it was the exact same thing where he just fell and fell and fell and fell and fell. And he finally convinced the coach to let him try like 10 more times. It's like, I know I'm just like on the verge of this breakthrough. Like, that's not like exactly how he said it. He's like, I want to make a hockey goal, and if you just give me 5 more minutes to try, I know I can do it, and then I can shoot the goal, and I promise I'll go home then. And so the guy's like, okay, I'll give you 5 more minutes. And sure enough, like on the 370th try, he finally stays up on the ice and gets to make a shot, and he goes home feeling like this completely capable person. But that's just how he has to learn, is lots and lots of falling down. So anyway, it's interesting how even for generators, they're like so different because of that spleen.
Yes. And my manifestor has that same channel. She's got that channel of struggle. And I see that in her, especially for her, it shows up in relationships. She really
Mm,
struggles in relationships. But then, being a manifestor who is more outside of the group, and then being with her channel of money, that 4521, that is really hard to have as well. That's what we've been working on. We've been working on that.
yeah.
And we've got 2 different kinds of leadership channels in our house. I have the alpha, which
Uh-huh.
is that democratic recognized leadership. She has that channel of money, which is leadership through the will. So it
Mm-hmm.
is really interesting. I'm trying not to take my
Yeah.
democratic non-willpower leadership and push her into that. It's been a struggle, and a challenge for me to help her. And we've been talking about that, how you need to take account of what the group wants instead of just what you want. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's been our point of work.
Yeah. Tell me what it's like to help her like listen to that internal divine timing too. I hear that I've watched that a lot with my brother, but again, not having raised a manifestor myself, I'm curious like how do you because it's kind of easy to teach a generator how to listen to their authority. It's a little harder to teach a projector how to listen to their authority, and a manifestor too. Like there's an internal process happening for them that it's hard to articulate. It's nonverbal, So I'm curious what luck you've had or success you've had, helping her tune into that internal timing so that she's also moving at because I know I have adult manifestor friends that like when they are in the right timing, things do just fall in the right place when they kick that first domino over. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and that I think that also pairs with the, like how do you get your manifestor to do homework? Like,
Yes, on a more practical level, yes. How do you?
yeah. Um, so
Yes,
like
exactly.
for those big decisions, like she's in a coding program, and we went and visited the place, which was really good for her undefined G center. Um, and she liked it, and she enjoyed like her time there and getting to like figure out how everything worked. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to sign you up immediately. We're going to give you a few days to just wait and see if this is something that you still want to do. And I did that as well with like school things because she likes signing up for things at school. But I'm like, okay, we're going to give it the weekend and just be and just chill and, you know, feel it through or whatever. And then we'll, we'll figure it out.
Oh, right.
And
Is she emotional
she
manifestor?
is an emotional man. Both my
Ah,
kiddos are
good.
emotional. Yeah.
That's very wise.
Yeah. So, and then like with homework, I used to try and do the homework battle. I also tried to I've given up on the reading battle. She doesn't read books that are at her reading level. She's a really good reader. She's reading all the time in class. Her teachers are like, she reads all the time when she's supposed to be listening. I'm like, yeah, sorry about that.
Hmm.
Um, but she doesn't want to read the books that I enjoy and that I want her to read. So I'm just like, you know what? Okay, I would prefer you get these kinds of books, but okay, you do
Hmm.
your thing, and she will sit and read when she has a book she likes. She will sit and read all evening, basically. It's like that. She's just in her flow, like when she creates,
Hmm.
she loves crafting. She's a crafter too. We have like a bajillion bead blizzards, and I'm not even like hyperbolizing that at all. She has tons of them, and she just crafts. She's just like that's where her energy goes. And she will just disappear into her room and just craft. And
Wow.
it's like she appears and she's got like 15 bead lizards, and it's like, this is great. We'll add them to the collection.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, my little brother has a had a huge library, if you will, of D&D characters. That was his big creative flow when he got to be, I guess, probably about 9-ish. And I never really understood the game. They now have like a board game for D&D, which is way more my style because I can see the whole big system in one package, right? But you still get that creative component where you get to make up like what item in your backpack is going to beat this monster or whatever. So we have come to a place where we have a bridge about that, where it was always a big contention in our friendship as kids. So, but anyway, yeah. So I get it. Yeah, that flow. I have the channel of concentration, so I can be similar to that when I'm really trying to focus on something to get it done or get it out. And deadlines for some reason really light me up. I don't know if it's probably an adrenaline shot more than anything. It's definitely not a sacral response. So yeah, anyway, so I can relate to sometimes what that must feel like for them. Um, but I can't say that I really get into a flow like that. I think the projector flow is quite different. It's a little more like a trout stream, where it's like a consistent stream of water rather than like this powerful, fire hose push that suddenly gets something done and it has to, because there's pressure behind it, it has to come out. So we have more of a, lazy river kind of feeling. I don't mean lazy. I was trying to get through the whole interview without using that word because that's what everybody thinks we are. But like, no, we just get more done with less energy. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that lazy river analogy.
Mhm.
Like it.
Thanks. Yeah, I wish I was. That's one of the things I'm practicing more now is just trying to be in that state of ease and rest. Because I think I stress my own body out by the internal dialogue I'm having, letting my mind have about what's on my list today. It's not the list itself. I was trying to observe that. I think it was a Karen Curry Parker actually class I took, I don't know, maybe 12 weeks ago now, and I was asking a question about, am I doing the right job or something like that, which is a silly question because I think all the types can do all the jobs. But her answer was really wise, and she's like, well, just observe and journal what things about the job that you feel stressed about and which parts of the job do you feel a lot of joy about, and then you'll know after a week or so of observing yourself if you're enjoying the job more or if you're stressed out about it more. And what I found out from observing was I'm adding a lot of stress to myself because this inner dialogue I have going on about what I'm about to do. If I would just try to get that to calm down, it's not the activity itself that's bothering me. So, yeah, whatever. I didn't know it. But the gift of being a mental projector is that that energy is almost like a motor. It is my brain is going almost all the time. So,
Mhm. Yes, and you've brought that wisdom to bear so beautifully in this episode. I love it.
thanks.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. Also,
Yeah.
I would love for you to tell us about like where we can find you and
Oh,
what
sure.
things you have for us.
Right now, my current passion is like helping as many parents as possible get human design in their hands. So I have even like a sliding fee scale set up for people because I do not want, I just know that like millennial moms are pretty much have careers set and everything, but younger moms, they might be still struggling but they're also have kids and they also need to know this stuff too. So I'm just pretty passionate about just trying to get human design into as many parents' hands as possible. And again, I don't think the focus is changing the child. I think the focus is changing just the way we're approaching them. And my experience with it, applying it to my own kids, my own family, has been that we're all getting along a lot better and we all feel like we belong a lot more because our energies are all being respected and honored. And so it's a gift I wish I had when I was a child. I mean, if I, I would love to just like, if I could give it away for free, I would, but I can't do that. So, but anyway, I just want parents to, so basically offer like a 4 point or 5 point coaching package where we start off looking at the designs and then we spend a few more sessions helping apply whatever we're learning about each other's designs into a specific situation that they are currently struggling with. Like maybe it's the homework battle, or maybe it's I don't know why, but tweenies seem to have a bath schedule battle too. And there are all kinds of battles, and picking, which is the hill that we want to really put all of our focus and energy into, and then using the chart to help inform ourselves as parents, and between the coach and the client, inform ourselves of what might a good strategy be. So yeah, again, I guess the coaching is also from a systemic, like the looking at the family as a whole system and seeing how the moving parts can work together efficiently. So
Yes. Yes, I love that. And if people go to sashaclark.com,
yep,
they
it's
will
got
find
a
you.
yes, it has a Y in it. I know
Yes.
you put it in the show notes, but it has a Y in it because Sasha's actually a boy's name from Russia. I'm not Russian. It's just Carl Sagan's daughter was named Sasha the year I was born. Oh my gosh, I'm dating myself. Anyway, so my mom wanted to make sure that it looked really feminine and put a Y in it, so it's an unusual spelling.
Awesome. I love that story. And yes, that link
Thanks.
will be in the show notes,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank
Um,
you.
yeah, and thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experience and your insight with us.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. All right, bye everyone.
Bye.